The old man threw the new pillow onto the floor and dropped to his knees with a heavy thud. The man standing before him assumed he was simply paying his respects, but the very next second, a massive stone slab descended from above, covered in food scraps. What struck Mike as even more bizarre was that John dove into the mess like it was a five-star feast, shoveling food into his mouth with abandon, while Mike could barely fight back the urge to vomit. Still, John warned him that he had to eat something no matter what. This prison wasn't like the ones on the outside. There was only one meal a day, and if you didn't eat, you starved. With no other choice, Mike picked out an apple that looked relatively clean, figuring he'd save it for when he couldn't hold out any longer. Before long, the platform began to slowly descend. After finishing his water, John casually tossed his cup over the edge and spat down after it. Mike asked why he would do that, and John replied flatly that the people below would end up eating it all anyway. There were 47 floors above them, and he wasn't the only one spitting. Some people probably pissed on the food too. Just then, Mike felt a wave of heat wash over him. John told him he must have secretly kept some food he shouldn't have. The rule was simple. The food on the platform only belonged to them while it was stopped on their floor. If you tried to hoard anything, the room's temperature would keep rising until it burned you alive. Mike immediately hurled the apple over the edge. Sure enough, the temperature soon returned to normal. The next day, the platform arrived at floor 48 right on schedule. And just as expected, the food had been completely trashed. John knelt before the platform as usual and wolfed down whatever he could. When he finished, he stood up and urinated straight down onto the floor below. Mike was stunned. He couldn't help but ask what the hell John was doing. John just shrugged and said he was adding some seasoning for the folks downstairs. Mike's stomach turned. He quickly changed the subject and asked how many floors this place actually had. John admitted he didn't know for sure. The lowest he'd ever been was floor 132, and even from there it seemed to go on forever. Mike had to ask, by the time the platform reached floor 132, how much food was left? John's answer was blunt. Nothing. Mike couldn't wrap his head around it. John clearly didn't look like someone who'd been starving. As he puzzled over this, John pulled out a sharp knife. Obviously, he had his own way of surviving. For the next 3 days, Mike refused to eat or drink a single thing. But on the 4th day, he finally hit his limit. He carefully picked up a piece of vegetable and slowly put it in his mouth. The taste triggered something in his brain, a rush of pleasure, and he lost all control, devouring everything in sight. As time went on, Mike gradually adapted to the brutal rules of survival in this place. He started copying John's behavior, gorging himself on whatever he liked, eating until he threw up, wasting food without a second thought. Then one day, a disheveled woman with a vacant look in her eyes appeared on the platform. Mike approached her, trying to help, but she recoiled with intense suspicion. John warned him not to get involved. He said the woman was insane and showed up once a month searching for her child. Soon the platform descended again. When it reached floor 49, 2 rough-looking men were waiting. The moment they saw the woman, they grabbed her and dragged her away without a word. Mike screamed at them to stop and nearly jumped down after her. But the gap between floors was over 6 meters. He'd be killed on impact. Not long after, the woman somehow crawled back onto the platform. The 2 men were never seen again. In that moment, Mike finally understood just how terrifying this prison really was. He began relying on John, and the 2 of them supported each other as they struggled to survive. But soon, John taught him a brutal lesson. That night, a pungent gas filled the air. John told him they were being reassigned to a new floor and could only hope for a good placement. Before long, everyone fell into a deep sleep. When Mike woke up, he was horrified to find himself tied to his bed, and John was walking toward him with a sinister look in his eyes. They had been sent to floor 171, a level so low that not even crumbs made it down. As Mike lay there in confusion, John patted him gently and spoke in a calm voice. He said he wouldn't eat him right away. He'd wait 7 days first. If no food came in that time, then he'd start taking something from Mike to keep himself alive. 7 days passed. The platform never brought a single scrap of food. John, now driven to the edge by starvation, finally snapped. He pulled out his knife, tore open Mike's clothes, and sliced into his thigh. Mike had become his food supply. Just as things seemed hopeless, a woman appeared on the platform. She smashed a bottle over John's head, then pulled out a small knife and drove it into his neck. Thanks to her, Mike survived. But when he came to, he saw something that made his blood run cold. The woman was gnawing on John's corpse. When she noticed Mike was awake, she tore off a piece of flesh and held it to his lips. The stench made him gag, but survival left him no choice. He choked it down. After enduring another agonizing month, Mike woke up to find himself on floor 33. His new roommate was a woman named Mary, and she had a dog with her. Clearly a backup plan in case they ended up on a lower floor. Mary told him the prison had 200 floors. If everyone shared the food fairly, even the people at the very bottom could eat. But Mike shook his head. He'd already tried. No one here followed the rules. Still, Mary insisted on trying. She portioned out the food and told the people below to take only their share and pass the rest down. The people on the floor below cursed her out and told her to mind her own business. Mike couldn't take it. He shouted down at them, threatening to piss on the food if they didn't cooperate. That shut them up. But the threat meant nothing to the people above, who kept wasting food as always. The plan was doomed from the start. The next day, when the platform came down, the crazy woman was lying on top of it. She was badly wounded. Mike and Mary carried her to the bed and did what they could to treat her injuries. But late that night, the 2 women got into a fight. Mike rushed over to break it up and discovered the cause. The crazy woman had killed Mary's dog. After that, Mary gave up. She stopped trying to change anything and just wanted to survive long enough to get out. But a month later, when Mike woke from the gas-induced sleep, he was met with a nightmare. Mary had hanged herself right in front of him. To make matters worse, Mike had been reassigned to floor 202. No one knew how deep this hellish prison really went. Mike sank into total despair. The platform held nothing but empty bottles, and he hadn't eaten in 7 days. Then the hallucinations came. He saw John. He saw Mary. In the end, survival instinct overpowered everything else. Mike gripped his knife and slowly walked toward Mary's corpse. Drawing on what he'd learned before, he managed to endure yet another month. When he woke again, he found himself on floor 6. His new roommate was a man named Sean, who was practically vibrating with excitement. Sean kept calling up to the floors above, begging for help. This was the closest he'd ever been to the exit. Sean was convinced that if someone up there just reached out, he could make it out. He threw his rope upward and began to climb. When he was just inches from floor 5, he stretched out his hand, hoping someone would pull him up. Instead, someone pissed in his face. Sean nearly lost his grip and plunged into the abyss, but Mike grabbed him just in time. Sean frantically wiped the filth from his face. There was no relief in his eyes, only tears. In all his time in this prison, this was the closest he'd ever come to freedom. But the rope was gone. Escape was now impossible. That night, Mike approached the devastated Sean and shared a wild idea. They couldn't get out, but maybe they could change the rules inside. His plan was to ride the platform down each day and make sure every floor got a share of food. That way, everyone could survive. But he couldn't do it alone. He needed Sean's help. Sean agreed without hesitation. The next morning, they ripped iron bars from their beds to use as weapons. When the platform reached floor 6, they wrote it down. To make sure there was enough food for the lower floors, they told the first 50 levels to skip a day. After all, 1 day without food wouldn't kill anyone who ate regularly. They used force to stop anyone who tried to take more than their share. Along the way, they met a wise old man. He told them their approach wouldn't really solve anything. The people running the prison from above had no idea what was happening down here. What they really needed to do was send a message. The old man suggested they leave one piece of food completely untouched, a signal that would tell those at the top what was happening below. Mike and Sean understood immediately. They chose a cake to serve as their message. As the platform descended, more and more savage people appeared. To protect the food, they had to keep fighting. By the time they passed floor 100, the sights grew unbearable. Corpses of the starved, signs of cannibalism everywhere. Eventually, they came across the crazy woman again. But this time, a hulking man had already killed her. Mike tried to avenge her but was knocked down. Sean rushed in to help. After a brutal struggle, they won. But both were badly wounded. Gritting their teeth, they dragged themselves back onto the platform. The deeper they went, the more horrifying the scene became. By floor 200, there was no sign of life at all. Still, the platform kept descending. It finally stopped at floor 333. In that pit of despair, they found a miracle, a little girl. No one could explain how she had survived in such a place. Looking at the helpless child, Mike made a decision. He fed her the cake, the message they had fought to protect, and then both men collapsed from exhaustion. When Mike woke again, Sean was dead. He had bled out. With his last bit of strength, Mike placed the girl on the platform. Then, as if in a dream, he saw John standing before him. John told him the girl was the message. Mike himself meant nothing. Guided by John's words, Mike stepped off the platform into the darkness. And there, he watched as the girl, the message, was carried to the top.